This episode of UDSP is brought to you by Shutterstock.com. With over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, help take your creative projects to the next level. Head on over right now and use the offer code Gamebreaker9 and get 25% or 25% off your new account. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of UDSP for September 9th, 2013. You're watching Gamebreaker, and I am Mike Shavnit. Today, we've got our hands-on impression from a special guest, an awesome interview from Zam over at Gamescom, and the number of dungeons has been revealed, all that and more. But first, joining us like he always does from Guild Umbra, Mr. Mark Taylor. I just called you Mike.
Hey,
my apologies.
That happens all the time.
How's it going, Mark? This is our first show together. Good, how are you?
Yeah. Yep.
Good. And special guest. You all know her and love her over from Zam everywhere. WoW Insider, legendary. This is OLIVia Grace.
Am I doing it right? Is this the thing? Is this it? You can't see the video stream that you've got, Mike Shavnit. All we see is the title screen.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to try and fix that. I think that's it, though. But for the record, let's just get into this, and I'll get the show.
It doesn't look like a unicorn duck shadow puppet when I do it, though.
It's you need the shadow part of it, I think.
I need the shadow part. That's a key element of the unicorn duck shadow puppet. I grant you. And I think my hand is insufficiently flexible.
That would do it too.
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
So first up, I got this in big red notes at the top of the show here. I think I'm clear to talk about this. I saw a tweet go out, so I'm going to just mean that's fair game here. We've got news. We told you guys, obviously, a lot of you guys remember Scott Hawks was on this show and left because he got another opportunity. He was very secretive of what that opportunity was, but I saw him make a tweet about it, so I'm going to assume it's okay to talk about at this point. It is official. Scott Hawks is working over at Riot right now. He got a job at Riot Games. Best of luck to Scott. Super happy to see him there, and super happy to have him close. So now we can go out for drinks. So Scott, congratulations. The internet is happy for you. Let's move on to some WildStar. OLIVia, you were actually at Gamescom, and that's kind of why we asked you to be on this show here. So first off, Gamescom is a very kind of exclusive experience.
Me and 339,000 of my closest friends.
Exactly. But what was it like? I mean, it was such massive numbers. The only thing I think that I can compare it to is something like E3.
It's funny enough. We were talking about this just before the show. E3 is like it's a ninth the size of Gamescom. We were looking at it. This year's attendance at E3 was like 48,000, and Gamescom obviously 340,000. So it's huge. I can't emphasize enough how massive this conference is. Hooray, video feed! Good job, Mike Shavnit. It's ridiculously huge. It was 275,000 last year, 340,000 this year. Every single day sold out. And they opened up, because normally Wednesday's the press day, and they opened up Wednesday to public tickets, and they doubled the price of the tickets, and that sold out. So on what's normally the press day, you're walking around and there's all these people, you're like, oh, they're not press, they don't have a press pass, what's going on? And those are the people who paid double the money for the tickets, and still they sold out of that as well. It's literally, there's crazy numbers of people there this year. But it was good, it was nowhere near as hot.
This was your first time at Gamescom,
No, it wasn't my first time at Gamescom. I was there last year, but last year I didn't manage to organize myself very well. So I was there last year in a big hurry. So Blizzard managed to sort me out with a press pass, which was great of them. But yeah, it was a real big disorganized rush last year. So I was literally just rushing over there for some Blizzard-related things, and didn't really manage to do much else. But this year I was there for 5 days. I did the gamut. I saw everything. I had a really fantastic time. If you are in the area, it's in Cologne every year, and if you are able to get tickets, do is it's like developers really bring out the big guns for this one. Like it's insane. If you're into pretty much any game, you're able to get this worth a trip. Really.
So if you're into, say, something like WildStar, you were able to get your hands on it with, right? Because it was at Gamescom.
It was at Gamescom. WildStar had a great presence, actually. They had a booth with several machines set up for public play. They had pretty much a 2-hour queue every time I went past their booth at Gamescom. It was insane. There was literally just like constantly a 2-hour queue, and I was like, oh, I don't have 2 hours. I don't have 2 hours to wait to go and play WildStar. I really, really want to. So we obviously got the opportunity to hang out with the WildStar guys, which was amazing. And Mark sorted me out with a 45-minute press test of the game, which was thanks, Mark. Love you, Mark. You're the best. And it was really good fun. And yeah, we managed to get in there and get onto that. But there was a huge WildStar presence there. They had a party on the Friday night, a fan party where they had the game available, and Jeremy Gaffney just sort of came in and was like, right, your mission tonight is to ask WildStar devs questions, so get on it. And like the whole night, it was just people there, like badgering all the WildStar guys from Carbine. It was really good. They had an amazing presence at Gamescom. They did really great work.
Now you said
they had this awesome cosplay. They had this cosplay. I have to tell you about the cosplay, Mike Shavnit. It was huge. Like I'm 5'7".
You're so excited.
Oh my god! Did you not see it? It was incredible. I'm like 5'7", so I'm not like the tallest person on the planet. But they had this guy who was what's the name of the race? The big sort of rock guy race.
Grandock.
Thank you. And he was cosplaying a Grandock, and they came out, and seriously, like he was walking past the press computers, and like I turned around and I was at like waist level of this cosplay, and he was wearing this structure. He must have been 8 feet tall in that thing. And it was insane. It had this gun, and man, it was so cool. There's a photo on their website. Go check out the WildStar website. We go into the media section and look at the Gamescom thing. There's pictures of it in there. I took loads with my smartphone, but yeah, that worked as well as you'd expect.
So now, you said that you got an opportunity. I think you said you have a 45-minute test on it.
Yeah, exactly, which is
amazing. What part of the game did they allow you to play?
We had the choice between the low level, like the sort of, the standard issue, this is what you get when you test a game stuff, or White Veil PvP. And if you've ever watched Legendary or read or experienced any of my Warcraft content, you'll know that I'm quite into PvP. So I obviously went for the PvP option. And also it's kind of nice to not just do the sort of, like, I don't think you get a good feel of a game from the start zone. Like, you often have, like, cast some unfair judgments about games from start zones. Like, I certainly do, because I'm not into, like, questing isn't really my thing. I like killing stuff, but I'm not super into questing.
Well they can have you kill 10 rats. I mean, you're killing stuff there.
Rats, man. It's the rats. I was definitely killing 10 squids. There was a little squid invasion thing, and they're, like, on your head and stuff, and I was definitely killing those. But yeah, no, I was onto the PvP. I was all up for the PvP stuff, so that was all I did, and it was really, really good fun.
Which I know at E3 we didn't really have much of an option of what we wanted to play. I think the only thing that was available was kind of the warrior class. Which race and class did you get an opportunity to play?
Well, we actually had character creation. So I was a Mordesh spell. I was going to say spell flicker, but it's spell slicker. And I sort of weird undead looking things. I had one of those. Spellslinger was quite cool. It was quite squishy. Insufficient CC to squishy was my initial impression. I felt that it's hard to say that like objectively after a very short playtime, but I felt like it could have done with a few more routes. Like, you've obviously got the charge stun on your 6, which you've got like the sort of charge stun where you blast through things and stun them as you go. And then you had sort of like a directional ice route, like a sort of Frost Nova, but directional. But I felt like I was still, if I pull big packs, which obviously you have to do as a caster, I was kind of getting owned. So I just went and killed people instead. I was like, no, sod these squid things, I'm going to kill some people. That was much more fun. It was a much better choice.
What level were you?
I believe it's, I want to say level 10. Would that make sense? You're the expert.
Well, 10 is when you can start PvPing, from what I understand. So cool. I
believe I started at level 10, so it's possible, like, got more abilities later. Obviously, you're not at max level there, but I still felt a little bit like I could do with. I wanted more CC, for the level of for how squishy the character was. I definitely felt like I wanted a bit more CC. But I had a great time murdering.
So if you've got a background in PvP, how did you find their marking system, the telegraph system? Did you find that off-putting, or did you find that challenging at all?
I'm so undecided on the telegraph system. I like the concept behind it, and that it enables you to do more complicated PvE mechanical things. Like you can sort of say, like spread stuff around different areas a bit more and do different patterns and that sort of thing. Like hearing Jeremy talk about it, he's obviously very passionate about the idea, but it reminds me of this add-on that was removed from WoW, like way back when. I was like, AVR, I think?
Yeah,
do you remember that?
It was AVR.
It was AVR. Yeah, so it used to draw these red circles on the ground where like abilities were about to happen, and they banned it because they said they made it too easy. But I don't think that that's the case with WildStar. I'm really looking forward to the beta reopening, so I want to play it more and sort of get more into it and sort of have a better understanding of it. I felt like right now I would prefer not to have it, I think. I would prefer the abilities to sort of not give you a big clue before they go off. It's harder to sneak up on someone and do stuff to them if it's like, oh, look at the red thing on the guy. Oh, God, you ran away, didn't you? That's the worst. But then it makes things more sort of mitigatable. So I don't know. I'm undecided on the telegraph system.
Now, Carbine's been actually really vocal about the importance of kind of getting the smoothness of their combat right. Pretty much, you hit your ability and it goes off straight away, no delay, and that's something that kind of WoW has just nailed, and that's why it feels so fluid. Obviously, launch is still 6 months away, but how close do you think that they are to kind of nailing that same level of fluidity?
I think they're pretty close. I mean, obviously, again, like I hesitate to sort of say, like, yes, I want to give you really, really firm feedback here, because I wasn't at home. I didn't have all my binds. I didn't have my setup. Didn't have my Naga mouse. I was suffering, guys. I was suffering. And like, I bind stuff so weirdly as well. Like I have super weird setup, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody, but I love it. And it's not WASD. So I don't really go for WASD. So like and obviously like 45 minutes is an awesome amount of playtest time. That's a fantastic amount of playtest time. I'm so grateful for it. But it's hard to give like sort of definitive feedback after that amount of time on stuff like this. However, having said all that, I think it's I think they're there. I think they've nailed it. Nothing felt unresponsive. I didn't feel frustrated. Like, that thing you get if you're PvPing and you're like in a sort of situation where you've got like 200 MS or something and you're just like, oh my God, and that drives you insane. I definitely didn't get that feeling from WildStar at all. The dodging was super responsive. That was really, really fun. Love that. That's probably my one favorite aspect of the game so far is the speed of movement. I feel so mobile. It's so quick. And yeah, I didn't feel anything was like lagging with the abilities at all. So I think they've nailed that as far as I can tell.
Now, OLIVia, if I can take your World of Warcraft habits into play here, I'm gonna guess that you probably paid a little no attention to the story.
What are you saying, Mike Schaffner? What are you even saying? What are you even
saying? I'm saying OLIVia D. Grace hates story, internet. That's what I'm saying.
That's true. I don't really go in for reading. I try to avoid it wherever possible.
So, that being said, how are the quests? Did you try out any of the questing at all?
I did do some questing.
None.
I did some questing. I did not.
Did.
I did more than none. I did more than no questing. I went and I killed some. I wanted to call them squibs with a B, but I'm not sure whether they were squibs or squids. But I went and killed some of those. And
hold the spoilers about that event, because we'll get to that in a second. So hold the spoilers about that event.
Sorry. Yeah, that happened. So I went and did that, and that happened. It was, it was questing. There was a quest. It told me what to do. I went and did that. I went back to the guy. I handed it in, and I was given another quest. At which point I said, "Sod this! I'm going to go kill some people." So that's pretty much questing with OLIVia D. Grace.
So didn't even pay attention. You didn't even care. Just
no,
turn in. Okay, I'm bored. I want to go kill people. All right.
That's why I did the PvP one. If I wanted to do questing, I'd have done the start zone.
What'd you say? Different strokes for different folks? That's fine. That's fine.
There you go.
Get it.
Everyone's different.
You hate good story.
I do. I actively hate story. Active dislike.
That's so funny because even at PAX they were trolling their own, the guy in charge of lore, on their panels and stuff. They're like, yeah, whoever cares about that story stuff. So it's funny to make fun of, but it's also sad in a way,
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a ton of people who play MMOs who play through them like a storybook, like who feel it as a living story that they're participating in, and really get involved in the story. Like Missy here at Gamebreaker is insane about WoW lore. Like she's amazing. She's like an encyclopedia. And I'm just not one of those people. And I think there's not a huge crossover between people who are into PvP and into story. I have a sneaking suspicion that there might be a disconnect there. I don't know.
I got trolled in the comments on last week's show because last week I was telling, Gary, I was like, dude, I'm just trying to get to endgame so that I can PvP, so I can raid, blah, blah, blah. And people were like, oh, you're an elitist and all this other kind of crap. So it's kind of interesting that I'm not
people are
the only
so fast to throw out the E word. The second that you try and just be like, no, this is all I'm going to do because this is what I care about. Elitist. It's like
elitist.
What?
You're such an elitist.
And my answer was like, I don't have any fond memories of level 25 to 31. I just don't. I got fond memories of downing that boss at endgame, So, I don't know.
So now, Mark, and feel free to chime in, but I'm sure you've voiced your opinion about the art style before. It's a very controversial topic of where it fits. OLIVia, what was your impression of the art style when you got your hands on it?
Sorry, I'm trying to make myself quieter because chat are complaining there's a volume difference between me and Mark, so I'm trying to make myself a little bit quieter for chat room. Is that better? Is Ryan a little bit quieter now? We'll leave it there for now. And the art style, I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm a huge fan. I mean, I coming from Warcraft, obviously, I wouldn't have a leg to stand on if I was like, no, it's terrible. I would like it to be more realistic. It's cartoony. It's obviously like a cool cartoony WildStar. Like the WildStar thing is this awesome cartoony world. It feels kind of like elements of it League-y, and I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of cartoony. Like I don't go in for super realistic because I always think it feels dated really fast, and like I don't unfortunately, I'm a blogger. Like what I do for a living is writing stuff and making videos for the internet. And while it's an amazing thing to do for a living, and I'm super grateful, it doesn't pay that well. Like it doesn't really pay that well. So I can't afford to have an awesome computer. So I have like a decent computer, but I can't run things on the top graphic settings. I really can't. Right. So it's the cartoony is 2 thumbs up for cartoony styles, and I think they don't date as fast. Like it still looks cool. Like WoW is very dated now, but they've made improvements, and I think WildStar will age really, really well too. It felt cool. I love like some of the styles of the stuff. Like I don't want to spoilers, but some of the styles of the things that we saw at Gamescom were amazing. Like you look at that and you're like, this is really cool. And I love the sort of semi-steampunk thing they've got going on. I love it. I'm really, really chuffed with it.
With the level of the polish of the game, are you happy that it got pushed back to spring?
I think that it's hard to say. I mean, like, I don't know exactly why they pushed it back to spring. I feel like the combat side of it is great. Like, I have no issue with the sort of the basic combat that I was able to experience. The questing was questing. It was a quest. I did a quest. The quest happened. And the PvP was good. It was fluid. It was fast. It felt good. But I have the impression that they're like still working on the PvE content, and we weren't really able to sort of really like get into any of that. So it's hard for me to have a strong opinion on the polish of the game right now. But like some of the stuff that they're looking at, which I don't, again, no spoilers yet, but it's insane. If that's why they're delaying it, go for it. Delay it all you like. I think it's better to do it. It's better to do it right than fast. So yeah, cool.
Overall, scale of 1 to 85. How excited are you about WildStar?
1 to 85. I'm at about a burning crusade. I am 1 to 100. I'm going to say I'm a solid 75%. There are things in WildStar where I'm like, not
75.
Sure
75 is still a failing grade. For the record.
What? Okay, then higher then. It has to be higher then. I'm really excited about WildStar. I can't wait to get into the beta. Sorry, I'm doing that freaky hand thing. I can't wait to get into the beta, she says, not bending her fingers back. I really, really enjoy the combat. I love the feel of the world. I love the look of it. I have no idea about any of the story, and that's just fine by me. I can't wait to play more of it. So, okay, if 75 is a failing grade, I'm going to say 90. There are things in it where I'm like,
dramatic.
How is this going to work? There are things in it where I'm like, I don't know how it's going to work. So I don't want to give it like a sort of solid, oh my god, this is the best game ever, because I still have reservations. But I really enjoyed my game time in it, and I'm really, really looking forward to getting some more time with it.
So if I may ask, what are some of your reservations?
My reservations, I think that WildStar is going to suffer from WoW. They seem to have this approach to raiding that is not completely, like, it's not an inclusive approach to raiding. They openly said, and I'm hoping I'm not spoilering. I'm sorry if I'm spoilering. They openly said that raiding in WildStar is not for everybody. They're doing 40-man raiding with a 20-man like option as well. And having spoken to like occasional co-host on Legendary Trekkie, who's the main tank for the world's best World of Warcraft guild, and they're in there. They've been pulled in along with Blood Legion, who are the world's second best World of Warcraft guild, and these guys are sort of being moved into the beta to get them testing the raids and get involved. And they're saying, no, 40-man. Who wants to do 40-man? And like, you don't get more elite than Method, And they're like, nah. Too much of a hassle. You've got to have a bench. You've got to have a huge bench. It's impractical. It's difficult. The telegraph system, trying to position 40 people. They're just like, no, we'll do 20. We'll do 20. So I think the sort of push for that, I don't know how that's going to work out. I'm glad they've got the 20-man difficulty as well. So that's fantastic. But I think the 40-man raiding is that's one of the things I'm unsure about. I'd love to see it work, but I'm not sure if it will. And the notion that people will be happy to go into the Elder game, and like WoW has put this idea into people's heads, rightly or wrongly, that everyone can raid. And that's definitely not where WildStar's going. So when you are a PvE focused player, you'll get to max and then you'll be like, right, how do I raid? Where's the raid? How do I get into raiding? Raiding. And they're not going to, like, all the other stuff is awesome. Like, there's so much else to do in WildStar than raiding. But people will have this mentality, MMO gamers who come from a Warcraft background will have this mentality of, how do I raiding now? And I think that could be something that they're going to have to really fight against, is this notion that PvE endgame equals raiding. So those, like, they're small reservations. They're niggles more than anything.
I want that to be a show. I know you might have said it by accident, or maybe I just misheard it, but I want a show title to be called How Do I Raiding? That would be awesome.
That was a deliberate.
How do I raiding? WildStar.
How do I raiding?
That should be the title of this show.
Yeah, there you go. Who writes this show?
All right, let's move on to an interview that you actually got to have at Gamescom. But before we do, I want to tell everyone out there about a awesome, amazing, wonderful, phenomenal, fantastic, insert qualifier sponsor that we have here, known as Shutterstock. You guys have heard us talk a lot about Shutterstock and how much we use it. It's absolutely true, and it's such a great tool to have if you're a part of the creative industry. There's so much goes on. OLIVia, you make videos. You know, when your expertise is making videos, you don't necessarily have the skill sets to make graphics from scratch, do you?
God, no. No, not...
I wish I would have had a camera on your face when you're saying no. You had so much fear in your eyes.
No, don't make me make graphics. I don't know what to do. How do I art?
How do I art? Another great show. And that's honestly where we're at. Gary and I work a lot on shows and videos, and so does the rest. Gamebreaker, there's a lot of people writing. We've got a couple graphics people, but no one who really makes them from scratch. We go to Shutterstock, and that's where we get a lot of our art assets that powers and runs a lot of the images that you guys see. I've actually used Shutterstock as well. I just got done with a feature film that I was working on and used some of the assets that I found on Shutterstock to incorporate into the visual effects that I was creating. It's a great tool, and it's super easy to use. You just head on over to Shutterstock and you just type in a keyword. So right up here, we've got a dragon. Let's say you wanted to find some dragons for inspiration. Type in dragon, you'll get a whole bunch of different styles. You can obviously make it so much more defined. But as well as it's not just images, it's also, as I said, it's stock footage. But the stock footage kind of works in the same way as alpha channels for people who are trying to make visual effects. So if you look up ink bleeds, these were some of the effects that I used for the opening credits for the movie I was working on, just for some kind of abstract looking, ink bleeds. So Shutterstock is extremely versatile, and if you're a part of the creative industry, you should definitely be using it. And if you head on over right now and use the offer code Gamebreaker9, you'll get 20% off, 25% off your new account. So head on over and do so right now. All right, let's move on because OLIVia and Gareth Harmon, if I'm correct,
yeah,
you and Gareth, you guys spoke to Jeremy Gaffney for Zam at Gamescom, and we held off talking about this for a little while so that we could have you on the show since you were the one who wrote the article. Yeah.
Gareth did most of the work on the article. I can't claim credit for that, but it was definitely there and it was very cool. Jeremy Gaffney is an amazing guy. He's like a diabolical genius.
The written article is definitely worth a read, and we just pulled out a few highlights that we'll sit here and talk about. So first up, he had this to say: Whitevale's a cool zone because there's a zombie invasion going on right now, where little squids are running around and attaching themselves to people's heads, creating this big sort of zombie invasion. They're giant robots stalking around that are not just interesting in their own right, but they're actual mobile PvP bases. They'll defend nearby players. They'll attack other players that come near. So, I think we might have lost Mark. Maybe.
We still have Mark video feed in the GoToMeeting, so I think maybe it's an error. He's still there.
Can you try it just real quick? Can you just try switching your camera off and on? In the meantime, OLIVia, giant NPC robots that take part in PvP.
Yeah.
I think we can just say this is confirmed at this point, right? Player versus player versus robot. PvPVR. PvRVP. PV player versus robot versus there's robots in the PvP. And it's really cool. It's like summoning the fire dude and the tree dude in Alterac Valley and just like, whoa, this is amazing. I just got attacked by them though. I was like, those robots, man. Someone knows how to control them, and it's not me, because all I do is go up to them and like, oh no, robot's killing me, run away, gallantly. But yeah, it's so cool. Mark, what do you think about this? There's a lot of this
in WildStar. It's just that.
I think it's just an interesting way to continue on the genre, but make it more intelligent, make it more interactive, I guess.
I mean, because this is essentially just an open world zone.
Right.
So PvE is obviously always going to be involved here. But it's kind of it's interesting that these robots will pick sides though. I mean, how is this determined? Are they like a moving capture point that the first person closest to them claims it until someone else does? Like how do you determine who gets the robot?
My understanding of it, and this is from playing the zone, and so therefore could be entirely incorrect, was that it's kind of like a zone capture. So you go into the marked zone, and the group that has the sort of side that has the more players in there will gain control of the robot, which may be why I was desperately unsuccessful in my attempt to seize control.
So you're seizing control of the whole entire zone, and thus these robots that are walking around.
I think Mark might have more info.
So I mean, I didn't get a chance. I haven't had a chance to do the PvP like this, so I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, I guess developers have been talking about a way to try to integrate, the PvE and the PvP, and what I mean by that is to try to have something where, and that's what this sounds like. So this is a theory crafting, right? Where basically it's like a race for the resources, like you're saying, and whoever gets the resource will either get that element or they can affect what's going to happen to the other side. They had started talking about this in Tor like 3-4 years ago at PAX in like 2010, that one of the things they were looking at doing for Raid was basically do both factions enter at the same time. They try to down the trash as fast as they can to get to a point, and it would give them an A or a B. If it was A, they would either unlock and go forward, or B, they could put more trash in the way of the enemy, if that makes any kind of sense. So it sounds like this, if you have some kind of analog to that, is you're basically trying to you unlock, you get this resource, and whoever gets I guess enough of the resources first gets the robot at the end. So but I don't know 100%. That's just what it sounds like based on conversations I've had with developers talking about the world of the possible, the world of what they want. And, from the conversations I've had with Jeremy, he explains monumental things that have happened in the industry in very short, very easy to understand sentences for small brains. So I'm quite sure that that's probably an implementation off of that, if that makes any sense. Does that kind of sound like what you said?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely could have been along those lines. And like I say, I did not manage to seize control of any robots, so I can't be confident in saying that it's definitely this. But that would make perfect sense. Like everything you just that makes perfect sense.
And I mean, war plots kind of do already have that PvE element already with capturable bosses. So this kind of sort of thing is kind of setting that idea up, isn't it?
I mean, it sounds like it, and to your point, the war plot is also could serve as your guild hall, right? So, I mean, what do you do with the war plot when you're not actually in a battle with another guild, right? I mean, I'm hoping that it's a place, an instance that you can go into to decorate, to build, because when your guild's plot connects to another guild's plot, both your guilds are put into a singular instance. And Guild A can destroy Guild B's stuff, and so at the end of that day, at the end of the battle, you got to rebuild that. So there's got to be some kind of mechanism, I would hope, where you get to go in there and you get to rebuild it, which is like a PvE experience. Vice just, okay, we get mats and we just click a button in our guild management interface, and then when we go raid, it's all there. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, how are you going to get the lay of the land? Because it's supposed to be a big, huge piece of land. How are you going to know where you're supposed to move to unless you can kind of practice it to some degree when you're not actually getting your ass shot off, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, so again, I'm theory crafting there, but I'm just assuming that's just kind of how it's kind of got to work, right? Or I hope it does anyway.
Makes sense.
What about, I kind of hope that these robots are attracted to the action that's going on in the zone, because it would kind of suck if they were to have them and then they're not where anything's really going on at all. Like, are they just going to be patrolling in an area, or are they going to come where there's exciting like action? Like, do we know how that's going to work? Or
I don't know.
Because I mean, wouldn't it? It'd be like, yeah, we got the robots, but he's over there and he's not going to help. So
I think you should look at it as like the way I was looking at it when I was playing it. And again, like, this is based on me playing it, so it could be complete nonsense. But it's like looking at it like a tower in LoL. Like, look at it like that. Like, it's a tower, but it's capturable. And so then, it'll be your tower until, if they manage to then, it's a tower that is like a PvP, like a flag in a WoW battleground. Sorry for keeping referring back to WoW, but that's kind of the game I play the most, so sorry.
How dare you?
I know. The worst. I'm the literal worst. But yeah, so it's kind of like that. If you were to take a tower and put it in as a capture point, like that, it's kind of like, look at it like that. They didn't seem super duper mobile, but they killed me in the face. Literal face death.
In the face.
That's like the hard way.
Yeah, exactly. I've got all this other stuff as well. But I think look at it like that. I mean, that again is just speculation.
I mean, some of the things that I know that they have is basically you have to do certain activities, and control point I don't think is the right word, but you have to do certain things in certain areas to gain control over certain resources like robots, and then that'll be like, okay, now they're working with you. But if you don't, someone does it before you, now it's working with them. That makes any sense. Don't ask me how I know.
All right, next up, Jeremy had this to say. He said that you can capture bosses from either veteran dungeons or raids. You capture them either by doing a special challenge, like a skill challenge to bring them down, or they're rare drops depending on what the boss is. If you do it enough, hopefully you get lucky and get a copy of some of the toughest raid bosses in the game. Do we know that this mechanic kind of extended to veteran dungeons? I thought we were just going to look at this at raids.
Yeah, that's the first time that I've seen that it's mentioned for dungeons, but I mean, my God, that's the most epic thing that I've ever heard about being able to put into a game, to take a raid boss or a copy and now put it on your war plot and sick them on on the enemy. I mean, it's just epic.
Yeah.
Sure, it is. And it's like, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, I mean, it kind of seems like good design, or at least a good design decision to open up the systems to players who don't raid, because obviously it's a really cool feature, but might make it a little bit one-sided if only, especially with how limited they're making raiding. Raiding's not for everyone in this game. Being able to open it up so that more people can do it, but they just don't have access to the raid bosses.
It also makes sense though too, by putting them in veteran dungeons. So for example, you got a lot of guilds that are just PvP guilds, hardcore PvP guilds. So if they don't raid a lot, you're going to put them at a disadvantage in a war plot, because now they're going up against a guild that does raid. I guess probably 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 or whatever. They're going to smoke that other guild. But when you come up against that raid boss plus them, now it's an unfair advantage against the PvEers or for the PvEers. So most guilds can get it together, especially if they're hardcore PvP guilds, can get 5-10 man people for a dungeon. Which off the top of my head, I thought it was like a 5-person number, but I know it's a lot smaller than a 20-man or 40-man raid. So I think that is specifically what that's for, so that the PvPers aren't gimped, right?
Yeah, like exactly what I was going to jump in and sort of say, like from the perspective of a PvP focused, like I do raid, but from the perspective of a PvP, it's WoW raiding, by the way, so it's not. But from a perspective of a
LFR raiding's not real raiding.
Elitist. But no, it's like from the perspective of a PvPer, like I don't want to have to PvE in order to gain an advantage in PvP. Like that's something which I hate in WoW when it comes up, and that's something that, like, if it's just to do a dungeon, then I guess I won't QQ too hard about that. But like I would prefer if there was a way to do it via PvP. And that was sort of something which I was thinking about, like hearing this from Jeremy as well, is like put in a way to do it via PvP. He did mention the special challenge, like the skill challenges, but I'm assuming, and maybe Mark you can clarify on this, that you would still have to complete the instance to get to the point where you would then enter into that skill challenge to then get the boss to control.
I mean, I don't know for sure. I'm assuming so, but for example, like the skill challenges will come up, and we had them. At the build that we were playing on E3, the one that you got to play on was obviously much cooler. But it was almost like an area quest. So, you're on a quest and you're going from A to B. We were like Durdan or however they say it. And, you started beating some, whatever, like an antelope, a space antelope, because you were like trying to figure out how to use your skills. So I was just killing different mobs just to try to figure out what my attacks were. And like I killed like 2 or 3 of them in a row, and then that unlocked challenge accepted, or
cool.
Now try to kill 10 in like 4 minutes or something. So maybe that's like how they'll do it, but it'll be at that level, right?
That sounds cool. I mean, it's like if you don't have to sort of run, like if you had to raid to get these bosses, that would suck as a PvPer. Like, I mean, okay, like I said, I raid in WoW, but WoW raiding is extremely accessible. WildStar raiding is not extremely accessible. And, if it's a case of having to go through the entire of one of the raid instances that we've seen, no spoilers, then to get the boss, that would be like, I'd be really sulky about that. PvP has had a lot of time sulking.
But answer this, like they have said from the start, unapologetically, that they are trying to build a game that will have stuff for the 5%ers or the 1%ers or whatever it is. So, because right now there is nothing. Right now everything, and this is the elitist comment, everything has been dumbed down to the casual or the average player, because why? Blizzard is trying to maximize their numbers to make their money. That's a perfectly viable, legitimate business practice. However, the people that get hosed in that equation are the people who are the top tier raiders or the top tier PvPers. So unapologetically, they have always stated, we are trying to give that group of people something so that they can be happy with and proud of. However, we're trying to make other variants of it so that the casuals or everyone else can play. So, for example, when you see a dude or a girl, whatever, walk around with that chest plate of badassery that you can only get from the 40-man raid, they want you to know that they had to get 40 people together and they had to deal with that boss. And they've been saying, I don't know if they're going to be successful, but they've been saying they are not going to, once they've got their raids working and the mechanics or everything are good and they're doable, they're not going to be ratcheting them down and dumbing them down because they want them to
bring back that item prestige.
Yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. They're trying to make a raid that's hard that like you can say, yeah, we did that. And then I think what their design methodology is going to be is they'll make like either an easier version of it for everyone else, or they'll just make other raids, or they'll make other types of content. But that really, really hard, raid or activity is going to always be there for that 5%, so that 5% or 1%, whatever the number is, will feel elite. There's got to be a bar, and there's got to be a bar that's might be out of the reach of some, but they're going to have enough other stuff in here that other people will feel cool, right?
Yeah, and this is kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about the things I'm sort of about, and it is that mentality. Like Warcraft has done either a wonderful or a terrible thing in making raiding accessible to everybody. And like there is still stuff in like people who were killing Raden, who's the final boss of the current raid, like the current raid until tomorrow. And the people who are killing him like 2 weeks ago are still in 25 man, are still top 100 US. So there's still stuff in there for those guys. But I do agree that there's like they need the idea of making different instances for different difficulties is fantastic. Like that's amazing. That's what other MMOs, WoW included, if they had the dev time, should be doing. Like that's a great idea. But I still have this fear that all the other cool stuff, if you're a PvE minded player, is going to be secondary to this notion of I must raid. So
well,
I don't know.
How about this? Next up, Jeremy had this to say. He said, we actually have a whole different system for group leveling that we haven't revealed yet, which is all based on voting. The group as a whole votes on which path they want to take through the dungeon, and the conditions change so that it's not always one optimal path of choosing the shortest one or the fewest bosses. We'll reveal more about that over time. That's actually quite a cool system as well. So, I mean, this isn't a whole entire like system like maybe a rating is, but it is kind of a really cool PvE system that's almost Star Wars: The Old Republic-esque, isn't it?
I don't know. I would agree with that. I mean, when you talk about the Star Wars-esque, you're talking about what's the outcome in terms of are you going to get loot or not, or are you going to get good or bad points or whatever it is. I think that what this is kind of an extension of the whole reason why they pushed back to 2014. Maybe I'm stretching here, but this is what I see. This seems to be more because the way their leveling was right now was it was like kill 10 rats, kill 5 rats, FedEx. Whereas they're trying to change the way that they do their questing so that it's more of you do a range of activities within a quest. If you do more of these activities, you get more XP and more loot. But if you just want to, do it and get it done, you can do like the minimum. And so by voting, I think that's the group version of that, or at least that's what it sounds like to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think there's also. Sorry.
I was. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, commenting on the sort of group leveling idea within the dungeons, I think it's also an element, like when we were talking to Jeremy about it, one of the things that he said was that when you're, like, dungeons which you're doing a lot, like they haven't got a ton of dungeons, if I understand correctly. Like, they haven't got a ton of actual separate instances. They've got the adventures as well as the dungeons, but they don't have a huge number of them. So I think it's an element there of trying to make the repeatable content more interesting. Like if you do dungeons in WoW, you zone in, you know exactly what you're doing to the letter. You smash through it, you're done, it's boring. You do it every week and it's more like a chore than a fun thing to do. And I kind of feel like this idea of like the differentiation within the dungeon so that different routes become available. And the voting thing is to stop people doing that. Okay, this is the shortest and fastest. This is the shortest and fastest. This is the shortest and fastest. This is the way we will do the dungeon. And I think, but I don't know whether there's a risk of it still being the case with the voting. Like, I can't help thinking that if people are running these a lot, and Mark, maybe I'm completely talking out of my proverbial here, but if people are running these a lot, there's going to be an element of, given these options, this is the right choice. Given these options, this is the right choice. Given these options, this is the right choice. Like, you can go through it fast.
I think to your point, you're exactly right. I think to the grind groups, because especially the min-maxers, the speed levelers, I think that's what's going to happen over time. It's going to take a while, or the people from beta are going to have go to this website and, this is the optimal path for X, Y, and Z. That's going to happen no matter how hard the developers develop or how much time. It's going to happen. Somebody's going to come out with a blog or a fan site or just a site that's got, the guides. And they're going to be those people who are the elitists who are gonna get, and then the real a-holes are going to be kicking the guy or the girl who doesn't
precisely
choose option B every time. They're going to get like halfway through. Okay, this guy's a jerk.
And how do you avoid making people so that they don't choose the shortest path every time? Because that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he mentioned the incentives that they're going for there, and like trying to give people things to do that will stop them from just being like, I want the shortest and the fastest path. And he sort of said in the interview that he's going to there's more info on this coming, like this notion of the choose your own adventure thing. I love those things. But like, I agree with Mark. I'm totally with Mark on this. I just can't quite see how they're ever going to do it so that the fastest option, which gives you the best, unless they do it so that the rewards are so insanely good from one of the slower options that it will outrank people's desire to be done quickly.
Now, I want to say that I heard or I read somewhere, or maybe I'm just imagining this.
I dreamt
in a drunken haze. I thought that someone had said something that they were going to have a randomizer. So, for example, if you go through the dungeon and you went AAB, and I'm just making that up, that was the fastest or the best way relative to the options you had at hand, that if you go through there again, doing AAB would give you a different outcome. So the only way that they could overcome this challenge, to my knowledge, is that they randomize what those options are so that it doesn't look like it. Or, because if they have the description there, you'll just read till you find the description. Okay, it's C this time. That's not gonna work, right?
No, exactly. I think the thing which, sorry.
No, I'm done.
The thing which gave me the impression that it was that kind of thing, like, the choose your own adventure, like the books where you're like, oh, do you A, pick up the pebble, or B, set it on fire? And like, that kind of him saying the choose your own adventure thing made me think that it was going to be very much like, okay, do you want to go and kill the big fiery guy who's over here, or do you want to go and, do this thing instead, collect some hats or something? And like, there's a finite number. If it is like that, actually, the randomization would probably be an awesome way to stop people from just taking the most efficient route. But it would probably also, like, for someone like me, like I level in Warcraft anyhow. I level through dungeons pretty much exclusively. Like Warcraft 1 to 90, 1 to 10, you can't do any instance. 10 to 15 battlegrounds, 15 to 89 dungeons, and then 89 to 90 quests. So I do a lot. That 89 minus 15 equals a lot of levels purely through dungeons. And if you're trying to level through dungeons and it's inefficient and it's slowing you down, like, that randomization would be so irritating. But that's not what it's for, I don't think. If it is randomized, that would be really cool. Like, those dungeons content is not for people like me who are just there to, go as quickly as I can. That seems to be specifically what they're pushing away. Totally.
You elitist.
Mark dropping the E word after he called himself an elitist.
I told you I got trolled, man.
We're all elitist.
Next up, Carbine just is absolutely insane here. So Jeremy went on to say, what we're considering doing is having weekends where we'll open up the cap on the raid so that larger groups can do it. 200 people can pour in and try to do it. Now, this is actually where, this actually gets interesting, because if you think it makes it easier, in some ways it does, but trying to coordinate that many people presents its own challenge. But if people could manage to flail away and kill a boss, cool item drop. Cool items drop. There's a S in there, items, plural. Cool items will drop. If you're never going to raid, you've got a shot at getting some of this cool loot and seeing some of these bosses that you might not ever be able to do before. And so when I play a game as a noob, I actually appreciate that. But the elitist, there's that E word, the elitist among us are like, no, leave them out of our raid. So we'll debate it back. We'll debate it back and forth and maybe experiment with it in beta. Holy cow, wait, they're going to open up these 40-man raids and just say, hey, you know what, 200 people, go for it. It's designed for 40, but we're going to let you bring 200?
Yeah, really.
How do you invite people to that?
It's insane. Like, I don't, how do you do the group finder? Like, do you have to, can you imagine being like someone who's actually put together 40-man raids? And like, you know, a guild like the Combined Method Legion that's going to be happening on the beta when it reopens for those guys to do the 40-man raiding because they just don't have enough people. Can you imagine those guys working their asses off, going through these raids, learning how to do them, and then all of a sudden being like, oh, well, this weekend, because it's I'm sure, I was just scanning through the article just there when you cut back to the 4 split and trying to see, I'm sure Gaffney actually called it the Million Idiot March. I'm sure that those were the actual words, but I'm trying to find a reference to it in the interview, and it's not that I couldn't see it in that short time I had, so I may be making it up. I'm so sure that we were sitting there, and he was like, "Yeah, it's a Million Idiot March," and I was just like, "That's such a cool thing to call it."
Come on, why couldn't they just? Wait a second. I'm not even gonna say this. I was gonna joke.
No. You started, Mike Shafter. You started.
I was going to say, oh, they couldn't just do looking for raid, could they? That'd be too easy. No, but this is kind of like an interesting alternative because I've always said that looking for raid in WoW serves that purpose of allowing the person who's too busy, who can't make any sort of time commitments, the ability to still see the game that's being designed. This is another approach to that. It's not going to be in its purest form. It's not going to be like this amazing, awesome experience of raiding with your buddies and overcoming a major boss, but it potentially has the chance to let people who would have otherwise never seen the content get to experience it.
Yeah, and actually I think it's a much better solution than LFR for that, because LFR looking for raid was always meant to be that. It was meant to be a way to see content, and somewhere along the way they lost their way with that, and it's now just another rung on the gear grind, which is really rubbish. Really, I don't like that. But this is cool. This is insane. Don't get me wrong. And I mean, I think you're going to end up with a core of like either 20 people or 40 people who are actually killing the boss, and then effectively cannon fodder, where you've got all these people and like, you know, looking at the video, I'm pretty sure like you guys have seen video of some of these raids, and just like looking at the telegraphs that are popping up on the floor and the size of the room and trying to imagine working 40 people into these patterns is just like,
forget about trying to work people into those patterns. What about your computer's frame rate?
Exactly. Imagine that was my next point. Like, you know, I know you play Warcraft, Mike. I know you don't, Mark. But they have this world boss, which they brought in a more recent patch, where like people were getting 200 people into a group to kill this world boss because the easiest way to do it was a graveyard zerg. So you died, but then you ran back so quickly that people were still alive. So there was a constant corpse stream, let's call it, killing this boss, and you're like death of 1,000 cuts on this giant dinosaur, and that's like people's game. Like they had to like nerf the boss because everyone's client was giving up. Like the actual servers couldn't handle it, and like, what is the effect of people like 200 people in an instance with heavy like AoE patterns on the floor, which are really necessary, don't require great particle density or anything like that, so maybe not that level of stress on your graphics card, but like 200 people doing AoE spells. 200 people.
Wow.
Mark, what do you think about his comment where he talked about, yes, it's hard or impossible to coordinate that many people, but with that many people, it doesn't matter because you'll just whittle away his health and people will keep dying. What do you think about that?
So, I mean, I think about a couple things. I think, remember back in the day when MMOs used to have game master events, in which case the devs would actually be playing one of the monsters in the game, and then it would be like an event and everyone would go to it and either fight them or fight another, you know, dev, and then at the end of it you'd get like a hat or something. I'm looking at this as a cool event that you could have, but then, you know, if you have like a really big guild, and this is just strictly a guild kind of comment, that could be a really cool guild night.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, can you imagine?
It would be complete chaos, but it could be an event. So I guess part of my problem is, you know, I look at it from the perspective of being in a guild. I'm not looking at it as being like an individual. Yes, as an individual, it would be something where I guess you could do it. I think that as a group of individuals, if it was an event that popped up, just like you say, like on the weekends or whatever, then it would be something fun to do, but it would be chaotic because of the frame rate. But Now just imagine it though, if you're like organized, whether you have a big guild or you have an alliance. Now you could just have a guild night or an alliance night, sitting there drinking beers, playing your game. I mean, that's what we do in my guild, and we just sit there and have fun, getting your ass kicked or kicking ass or whatever. But I'm just trying to say,
elitists don't play games for fun.
Yeah,
God, doing it wrong.
At that point in time, with 200 people, unless you're really anal retentive, you're not really worrying about more dots. You're just having fun, right? With 200 people, that's a gaggle. That's just having fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I found he did call it the Million Idiot March. I'm so happy that it's in the interview. I found it whilst you were talking, and I think it is. It's literally just going to be. I honestly think you're going to have a core raid team who he didn't mention whether they would be upscaling the boss for this. So as far as I can understand it, and I could be talking nonsense, but as far as I understood it, it's going to be a 40-man boss with 200 people. So if you've got a raid that's organized and another either 180 or 160 people who are trying not to stand in bad and also cast damage-dealing spells, you'll probably whittle it down even if you lose 100 of them. And I think that's kind of the mentality. Minus 50 DKP minus! But that's the kind of the mentality here. And I think this is such a cool way to show content to people who otherwise wouldn't see it. But I do think that, Mark, you make a really great point about the guild stuff. Because otherwise, who's going to want to organize to try to get 200 people even in a room at the same time? Who's going to be the one who starts that group up in chat?
What if it's not a group?
What if
it's literally just like, hey, everybody go. We've got 3 groups over there, 3 groups over here. They'll do their job. We'll do ours. Just go.
But simple things like this is the out of the box, which is such a cliche term, thinking that these guys are doing. It's making people get excited about this game, because this game came from nowhere and it's a slow burn to success or whatever. I think it's going to have a good launch, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But it's stuff like this that's getting people excited again about MMOs, because a lot of people have been let down of some MMOs as of late, especially over the last couple of years, where I hear people going, that's it, I'm not playing MMOs anymore. I'm going to play board games or whatever. This is goofy. This is not necessarily a super serious thing. It's just fun. It's just kind of cool. It doesn't have to meet any success criteria, like a 40-man boss, where you have to have precise activities. It's just fun. It's funny. You can laugh at it. And that attitude is what's getting people excited about this company and this game.
Definitely. And it would, imagine that. Some of the bosses they showed us, and again, spoilers, but, there's some of the stuff that they showed us in there. You can just literally imagine. It's this thing, the telegraph on the floor, it was kind of like a colander, the thing you drain your pasta in when you've made pasta. It was this sort of colander pattern on the floor. And you could just imagine, the boss sort of does this, bosh, colander appears, bosh, abilities goes off. And it's because of the telegraph system, it's somewhat easier not to stand in bad, because you get this advanced warning of it, rather than just having to remember that when the boss does this emote, he's about to do this thing and it'll be in front of him in a cone shape. So it does make it somewhat easier. But, the person's going to kill 50 people. It's going to be so funny. Exactly. And then the next time around, people will be like, "Oh no, maybe I should move from the red star. Oh no, I'm dead." And
they need to make this boss get stronger every time he kills some person.
Do you know what they need to do? Is they need to live stream this event every single time it happens. They see an official WildStar Twitch stream and a dev flight mode, which is watching this when they actually happen. Because I would pay to watch that on Twitch.
Which they're considering doing. They haven't got it in game yet, but they're talking about trying to create some kind of ghost account so that you could kind of watch these events. Because they're trying to figure out ways, slightly off topic, they're trying to figure out ways to support what it is that we all do. They're trying to figure out how can we support the streamers, because they're making some money, but they're showing our game. They're selling our game for us. And so it's not only a way to help the esports, it's a way to help the bloggers and the online vloggers, Gamebreaker, us. That's cool. A lot of game companies haven't even had that discussion, or they're like, "Oh, that's a good idea. We'll put that on the wall of crazy and never talk about it again." They're actually, I have some kind of faith that they're actually looking at kind of doing it, whether it's a paid or an unpaid kind of, event.
Yeah, the wall of crazy is like WildStar, is like Carbine's to-do list for this game.
Yes.
All the other
Yes.
Jeremy Gaffney is in charge of the Wall of Crazy, and he's just like, yes, starting here, we're going to put 200 people in raid instances every now and then. They'll be able to capture bosses and use them in PvP. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of this is going in the game. Great ideas. Like, we were talking to him about the idea, like, one of the guys who I was there with from Zam had this idea of, like, a pure, hardcore, rule-free, anything goes, no safe zones PvP server. Which, and like, when you roll on it, you were like, you have to be like, you know, like, sign on the dotted line to acknowledge that you have understood what you're doing. And it would be hardcore. So death is like permadeath hardcore. And the guys from there were like, that's a good idea. And like, obviously this is not any kind of like, you know, they're not, it's just a crazy idea someone dreamt up. But that they're like, I can totally see them doing that. Like, Gaffney would just be like, yes, this is a brilliant idea. I'm putting it in the game. They're insane, and I love it. It's what's so exciting about this game.
All right, last up, before we move on to our final part from your interview, I want to tell you guys about another sponsor that we have. But, OLIVia, I got a question for you. Do you have Hobbit and Lord of the Rings on that bookshelf behind you?
Oh my god.
She's in the UK, she better.
Somewhere. Yeah, I do. I've read all the Lord of the Rings books and the Hobbit books.
Let me just tell you, if you can't find it or if you don't want to spend the amount of time it takes to read those books, you can head on over right now to audible.com and check out Cliff Notes for the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Oh, seriously? They've got Cliff Notes on there now?
They've got Cliff Notes on there now. You can get through all of the Lord of the Rings in just 5 hours, which might sound like a really long time. Let's not pretend like it takes like 800 hours to get through all those books.
I'm looking for the books because they're huge.
Cliff Notes, guys.
Yeah,
high school, your high school term paper's best friend, Cliff Notes.
I went to Oxford University to study English on Cliff Notes.
There you go. There you go.
Nice.
Head on over to audible.com/Gamebreaker, and you guys will get hooked up with a free 30-day trial as well as a free audiobook. So hey, maybe your school's back in session. Maybe you got a paper you got to write on a book. Why not check out to see if your favorite Cliff Note abbreviation audiobooks are available and sign up today. So head on over right now, Gamebreaker or audible.com/Gamebreaker. Unfortunately, I don't have the slide for it. Oh wait, yes I do. It's right here. Ta-da! Audible.com/Gamebreaker. Go head over right now. All right. Now, let's move back into WildStar and take it to the final bit that Jeremy Gaffney had to say here. He said, when you hop on a mount inside of WildStar, you don't get knocked off by random damage. For us, your mount has a shield bar. When you work the shield bar down to 0, you get knocked off the mount and you can't hop back on for a short period of time. The mounts have abilities that you can use in combat. So depending on the mount, depending on how you have it customized, you can get ones that are buffer. You can get ones that are buffer that are harder for you to get knocked off of. Or ones, this sentence, very run-on comment. Basically, you can buff from what I'm getting from here, you can buff your mount. You can get ones that are harder for you to get knocked off of, or ones that have more useful powers for you in combat. It usually has a temporary power such as a super jump or super speed or something that you can use infrequently. So they're giving perks to mounts. That's another, I think that goes up on another wall of crazy, like, hey, we'd like our mounts to be able to be buffed. They're like, yes. Why don't we buff our mounts?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah. I need a chair that I could like swing around in to be Jeremy Gaffney with my creepy cat.
So I mean, we Mark, you guys talked a little bit about this last week. The shield bar mechanic is really nice. I mean, random dismounts are probably the biggest cause of frustration for anyone playing a game. Like you immediately aggro someone. You're like, please don't daze me. Please don't daze me. Please don't.
Don't chase me, bro. Yeah, I mean, this is just, again, one of those mechanics or one of those kind of things that people don't like. And the thing that these guys are developing around, again, I can't praise them enough from my interactions with them, And it's not like all the other developers are bad. It's just their focus is kind of different, right? And so in any kind of method where most games design things so that everything is against you, right? And so your challenge is to overcome everything in the game or all these systems. Anything that you can find in this game so far relative to talking to them and playing, if there's something that gives you an inherent advantage or that's cool, not only are they going to go with it and err on the side of the player, but now they're going to put it in their game and kind of figure out how does that, go, and develop along the way. So giving them stuff that people don't like, frustrating things, they're trying to take out, right? So your mount is the first thing. Being able to customize it the way you want. We kind of talked about color and stuff like that, but that's what people want. And then from seeing the video, you can actually fight on your mount, which I haven't seen anywhere else. People are always talking about open world PvP and having some kind of mounts in there. I know it's going to really suck for that dismounted guy, but can you imagine how cool it's going to be to own somebody where you're like, oh, there goes a noob. Boop. Because they showed it in one of the videos. I can't remember which one, but they showed a guy on a vehicle. I think it was a Granok, and he blew up probably a Rose Tower or something. I mean, that's the mecca. That's the holy grail that we've been looking forward to in PvP is vehicle PvP. Having it. Have we
seen at all the types of vehicles or creatures that we're going to be getting as mounts yet?
No, the only ones that we've seen are the motorcycles, where it's really like a big unicycle, like a really fat tire in the back or whatever. But they're supposed to have mechs, I want to say. They're supposed to have like some kind of tank or something like that. So, I mean, this is hearsay. This is what I've heard. Don't ask me how I know. Who knows exactly what we'll see? So, I mean, getting into beta is going to really get exciting. Or the more stuff that they release, the new dev speaks coming out are going to really continue to get us jacked up, because I'm jacked up to play this game.
And I mean, here's what's really awesome about it is just the fact that, obviously so many people collect mounts. Everybody does. It's kind of that thing. But after you've ridden that mount for a couple months, you get a new shiny mount, and then eventually, like, you're just constantly switching. There's no real purpose to the mount other than the speed, and there's no identification. But in WildStar, they're actually going to be giving you benefits to different mounts. So it encourages people to not only try to earn these different mounts for the prestige of look what I'm riding, but also for the idea of the ability that it's going to give you.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I can totally imagine. I was trying to think of what they could do with it. Like, I can imagine, like, gathering. You could have increased speed for decreased durability. You could have, like, tank-type mounts and, mounts which have different abilities. Like, it's pretty cool. I have a horror of the notion of mounted combat, though. I think it was that Argent tournament stuff in WoW. And, oh, my God, mounted combat. Oh, no. And maybe they can do it because they take such a different angle of things. Like, they don't say, oh, look at this system which this other game used. Why don't we steal that and adapt it to be our own? They're just like, mounted combat. How could we do it and do it well that isn't frustrating? But, like, Mark, do you know if they have are they going to be doing flying mounts in WildStar?
They said they're not going to be there at launch, which means they're at least open to the dialogue, the discussion. We touched on it last week, and basically the one reason why a lot of developers don't want it is because they say it from WoW it kills community.
Kills them. Yeah, well, PvP as well.
And so, yeah, I mean, there is that. So I don't know if they're going to put it in. I don't care. I mean, I'm fine with ground-based vehicles. But, another thing that they could do with it is, relative to what you're saying, is you could imagine using them in raids where you need to get that drop. You need to have the mount that can hop, or you need the ones that have
that's a good
that are more
idea.
tanky, so that maybe you can do stuff in raids that make it easier, because to get over to that ledge to get the right angle of attack against the boss, you need the mount to hop up over there so that the spell slinger can shoot without having to worry about getting one-shotted or something.
That could work. I think it would have to be something, because it's one of the things that you can spend cred to buy, isn't it? The mounts. They're sort of wanting you to put your coinage into that.
I think
right?
so, because I believe that the settler can build them, right? So that'd be interesting to see if with cred you could get the mats that you need to construct it.
What does this do from what does this do from a microtransaction point of view? That's obviously a big issue if a select mount has a specific ability that becomes more powerful than the rest of the game. Obviously, it's going to cause a lot of disgruntlement. So what does this potentially mean for WildStar?
With cred, I mean, I guess the whole microtransaction kind of thing is, and maybe I'm not seeing your question correctly, is kind of moot, right? Because cred's accessible to everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can't just stroke a check for $20 or whatever, then just grind in-game gold to get a cred and then go on with your life. But see, the thing is if you're grinding the gold to get the cred, you've already got the gold firsthand. So
yeah,
the gold, you're going to buy what you need, right? So the point is I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking your question, but the thing is you could still have it where, so for example, in some raids or some instances, you're going to need the boots of levitation or whatever to get to an area to fight the boss. You know, you're going to need that something, whether it be food, a mat, a weapon, a gear check. This is just an extension, again, of the wall of crazy of what a mount could be. You know, I don't know, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to be, if they do it along those lines, and I think my understanding was that you could use obviously either the cred or the gold, so maybe I was unclear there, apologies for that. But they're going to have to make it so that it isn't necessary. Like, there's a real fine line between nice and necessary, particularly from the sort of more like aggressively progression-focused end of the game. So I think they're going to have to do, like, I can imagine them doing things like Mark was saying, like a mount that can hop a long distance. But they'd have to make a way so it wasn't like the best way to kill this raid boss is to use this mount and, you know, hop up onto that platform as a spell slinger. But I think there's so many things that they could do with mounts that would be so cool. My fear with it is slightly that there's going to be a best choice. Like, you're going to have all these amazing options and these amazing ideas, and that for each, like, if you're running around on a PvP server, that you're always going to ride your tank mounts. Like, you're not going to ride your speed boost mounts. You're not going to ride your, what else? I can't remember what else it was. But like, there's going to be ways. Mount. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. But it's like, you know, you're going to get stuck with one mount because you feel you have to. Whereas maybe you really, really love your gathering mount. Like, I can see that being a slight thing. But I don't know. I'm sure I kind of believe in these guys that they'll work it out.
But look at how long we've had this discussion on a mount.
Yeah,
because
really.
They're talking about cool stuff that they're thinking about injecting into their game. The fact that they have the three of us talking about it this long is proof positive of how cool, you know, the game's kind of going to be, and just their thought process on the things that they think are fun to put into a game. That's cool.
For sure.
Mark Taylor, you can follow him right down there at Guild Umbra. Thank you so much, Mark. It's always a pleasure, and it's wonderful meeting you at face-to-face on the internet.
Yep.
OLIVia D. Grace, you can follow her right down there at OLIVia D. Grace. No, you still
trying.
have the shadow. Wait, the shadow's
Look,
being cast on you. The shadow's being cast on
face.
you. Yeah. All right. I kind of see it. It's very diffuse. Be sure to catch her over on Legendary, Zam, WoW Insider, all over the place. And right here on Gamebreaker TV. You can follow me right down here at Mike Shaffnit. Holy cow, I've got a bigger nameplate than you guys.
Because you're a
that
big
was
man.
not planned.
Big man with big beard.
That is very big. You can follow me right down here at Mike Shaffnit. Be sure to catch me all over Gamebreaker with Waypoints, League of Legends, World of Warcraft, Tuesdays and Thursdays, as well as After Dark. Today's Monday, so tomorrow,
basically
live call-in
every
show.
day. Just tune into Gamebreaker. Mike Shaffnit will be on it.
Ding.
Tune into Gamebreaker.
Be sure to check out Gamebreaker TV, this website, as well as follow us on Twitter at Gamebreaker TV for all of your MMO-related news. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. See you guys next week.
Arriba!
All right, guys.